Oh, yeah, here we go. I might not be too full of energy today. My hernia surgery was postponed, so I just had it a few days ago. And I started going up my painkillers because I hate painkillers, but I'm suffering from that. So we'll make it. It's just pain. I'm going to talk about something that could be somewhat triggering for some people. And hopefully today you'll understand why we get upset or why we get triggered. We'll talk about that. It's about our past. Repairing our past. I love this word resilient. I don't know. I come across it a lot these days in my work. People are so resilient. I'm amazed at how resilient people can be. Resilient means that you're able to bounce back after some kind of trauma or terrible thing that's happened to you. You can bounce back, so to speak. And resilient people understand that it's important to repair their past. Anyone who's ever owned a home knows that there's repairs. Always repairs. Things wear out. Things break down. I'm working on a retaining wall right now for 3.5 years. It's breaking down. It's not fun. But if you don't repair things and keep up with repairs, a house doesn't stand forever. This is what happens. You don't do anything to a building. It's the law of entropy. It just falls apart. So it is with our lives. Things happen to us. Bad things happen to us. Downright bad things happen to us. And if we don't repair it, if we don't do anything about it, soon we can find our present lives crumbling, falling to pieces. Sometimes it doesn't happen until you're later in life. Midlife crisis. Points in our life like this where it starts to show up. Before I even go too far today, I'm going to talk about the brain. The brain has been fascinating to me. The interesting thing about the brain is that there's so much we don't know. But in the last 10 to 15 years, we have learned so much about the brain. When I took my biology degree 45 years ago, I had to relearn all kinds of stuff about the brain. It is just amazing how different it is when I learned it 45 years ago. So I'm going to share a little bit about the brain, and some of it may seem rather just, yeah, of course that makes sense, but some of it may seem quite fresh and new. Because when I took my biology degree, it was all DNA, it's in your genes, but you know, the more we study genes, the more we study the brain, the more we realize there aren't genes for this, and there aren't genes for that. It's actually how you were nurtured. It's actually how you were raised and the experiences of life. And even as a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, going through this stuff about DNA, I kind of felt that's the way it was anyway, different inspired writings that I had come across it. And now science is just backing it up, and head over heels. Everything that you experience in the present is interpreted through your past. There's no other way to do it. If I pulled something out of my pocket, which I don't have, that you've never seen before, you wouldn't know what to call it, you wouldn't know what to do with it. But if I pull something out of my pocket that you have experienced it before, you immediately go, oh, I know what that is, and I know what to do with it. Even if you've never seen one exactly like it, your brain reaches back in its past and it interprets what I'm holding and puts a present interpretation on this object. That's how the brain works. It's no other way of working but that way. This is why two people will always have a different view of a situation. Like, right now, you are all looking at me, same person, but every one of you is looking at me from a different angle or a different position. If I were to stand like this, some people would say, well, Don looks like this. Some people would say Don looks like this, and some people would say Don looks like that. And if there's somebody over here, they would see me from a a different position. This is why in relationships, where there's two people, there are always two valid realities. Realities. And this is why 69% of marriage issues are unsolvable. And we try to solve them when they're unsolvable, because you'll always see something through your own past experiences. You can't do otherwise. It's impossible. So two people will look at finances or raising children or you name it, and they will see the situation and interpret the situation through their past, thinking that it's the reality, it's right, and they will butt heads who's right and who's wrong until cows come home, and you just make enemies out of each other. There's a lot to be said about how to deal with differences. But I'm going to go more deeply into the brain. Now, I know that the latest research says we have 3 brains, but I'm going to combine 2 of them into one to make it real simple for you. Okay? 2 brains. The conscious brain and the unconscious brain. The unconscious can even be divided into 2 brains. And I'm going to use my hands to illustrate the brain. I think we've all had enough biology to know we have 2 halves, 2 hemispheres. So I'll just go with one just to show you. My wrist, my palm here, back here, represents the hindbrain, which controls my heart rate, my blood pressure, my digestion, all those things that I don't want to worry about, think about. I don't have to think about it. It does it automatically for me. My thumb, right in there, represents the middle brain, or the limbic system. Altogether, that's the autonomic nervous system. And that's the part we want to talk about today. My fingers represent the outer layer, or cortex. Outer cortex means layer. And it's the conscious brain. And my 2 fingernails right there represent my frontal lobe, where, as a human being, I can do a lot of rational thinking, what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. Okay. This is the part that gets us into trouble. You see, this part has a conscious memory, explicit memory. For example, I can tell you of a memory, and you could tell me of many memories like this. I was in 1st grade. My mom threw me a surprise birthday party. I could see the house. I can see the school across the street where I went to school. I can see vaguely a table with a round cake. Can't see who was there, because you can't remember that part, but I do remember, in my mind, I do remember my mom cutting the cake into wedges, and everybody got a wedge, and when they ate their cake, each of us found a coin wrapped in wax paper in the cake. I can tell you the facts. But what you don't know, what you don't see right now, is that inside my body, I'm feeling really tingly. In fact, if I could show you my arm, my hairs are standing on end and there's goosebumps every time I tell that story. Why? Because not only do I have an explicit memory of that event, I have an implicit memory in my limbic system. My feeling, my emotion brain has a memory, an emotional memory. And when I tell the story, it connects with my emotions. And right now, I'm tingly from my neck down through my shoulders, and it's a great feeling. It's memorized. And just like my conscious brain can bring back a piece of information, my unconscious brain can bring back the emotion that I actually felt the day of the party. And the bodily sensations that I felt during the party. Getting a quarter was like getting a $10 bill today. You know how inflation is, You buy a tank of gas for a gallon of gas for 12 cents. A quarter is like, what, $10 now, right? So the point is, it was a great memory. And we all know, all of us know, that right now, if you chose, you could bring out another memory, a different kind of memory that would make you sick to your stomach. It would cause extreme emotional pain, and you might even feel it in your body. You probably will, somewhere in your body. True? We've all got them. They're past memories, but they're recorded in the limbic system. Not just information, but in an implicit way, the emotions and the bodily sensations are there. painful as they are. How does this play out? How did we learn this? I'm telling a little short story of a lady who did not have a hippocampus. A hippocampus is an organ that all the information comes into the brain through the limbic system, and then it goes up into the conscious system first. That's to keep you alive, keep you safe. And when it goes up there, it goes up through a hippocampus. And the hippocampus in this one lady was not functioning. So she couldn't remember facts about her past. It's pretty hard to think you could even live like that, but she was living. But she didn't remember, she didn't have a conscious, explicit memory of the past. So every week she was coming to see the psychiatrist, and the doctor would have to introduce himself every week. Hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so. Because she had no memory of this guy. He was studying her, basically. And one week he put a pin in his hand, and when he shook her hand, he poked her in the hand and caused her some extreme pain, obviously. That's unethical today, but he did it in those days. And I don't know how he got through the session. But the next week she came back. And when he said, hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so, she kind of froze and she goes like this. And he goes, I wonder if she remembers me. And just to find out, he says, why won't you shake my hand? And she said, I don't know. The doctor's heard you. So in her implicit memory, she had linked in her mind the word doctor with this pain, this physical and emotional pain. And when she heard the word doctor, immediately she went, right? How many here have an emotional sensation of when you think about going to a dentist? Or even thinking about being a dentist here? How many here have an emotional sensation of going to the hospital? Or even going to see a doctor? Different people do because of different experiences. Some people don't. Some people say that's no big deal. We all know that memory from the past is embedded in the gut, so to speak, or anywhere in the body for that matter. Little Johnny's playing around with his little airplane. He's 4 years old. He's just being a 4-year-old kid. He's going, he's running through the house. And on this particular day, his dad has come home from work. His dad's had a hard day at work. The boss is on his case. He's worried about his job, his relationship with his boss. And Johnny comes flying through the living room where Dad's trying to read the newspaper, and his dad snaps. And he yells at Johnny in a loud voice and says, how can you be so stupid? You know, like, I've told you a million times, I need peace and quiet when I come home. Now go to your bedroom and play there. Shut the door. And little Johnny starts to cry. He goes to his room and he sits on his bed and he goes, hey, what's the deal here? It's not my fault. It's my dad. He had a hard day at work. You know, it's about him. It's not about me. No, Johnny doesn't do that. Johnny says, I made my dad angry. It's my fault. I'm a bad kid. I'm a bad person. Do you have a battery power? Yeah, it's red. And so Johnny goes, I'm stupid too, because I don't remember him telling me a million times. And little Johnny grows up to become John, Big John. He's a big man. And he's got a petite wife. And his wife, one day, gets a little excited and raises her voice. Don't put that dish in the microwave! Must have been something special about the dish or something. And he, Big John, snaps. He just snaps. And he screams and yells, or maybe he just walks up and slams the door on his way out. What's going on there? Well, what's going on is this. His limbic system was triggered. That word triggers, it's there for a reason. When you pull the trigger out of the gun, there's no stopping that bullet. It's going. And when your brain gets triggered, there's no stopping it. It's going. He doesn't even have the power to reason. It's been disconnected. He's not able to go, hold on here. This is my wife. She loves me. I love her. She's not a threat, physical threat. She's just half my weight. No, his limbic system kicks in with this whole feeling of danger. I'm in trouble. Run for your life. Fight, flight, or freeze. And he does something that he regrets. A few even minutes, sometimes a couple hours. His brain settles down and he goes, so stupid me, what was I doing? It's the past being played in the present, being triggered by the critical tone and the loud voice. And that Negative belief, I'm stupid. Some doctors hurt you. It's a belief. It's a belief that's not held in the conscious mind so much as it is in the feeling brain. I feel like doctors hurt me because I feel the pain when I hear the word doctor. I feel I'm stupid. Maybe on a good day with a logical brain intact, I can go, I know I'm not stupid. I'm intelligent. I'm just intelligent differently than this person's intelligent. But when we start feeling stupid, it's a whole new ballgame. We crash and burn and we feel stupid. That's the limbic system. So the limbic system not only has emotions and bodily sensations, it actually has what we call implicit beliefs, core beliefs. Core beliefs, like I'm stupid, I'm not good enough, I'm a bad person, I'm a failure, I'm ugly. And we all know what those feel like sometimes, don't we? Sometimes we fight them like we can't believe and we still can't conquer them. So what memories are you carrying around in your implicit mind? What emotions, what bodily sensations? What shame are you carrying around in your brain? I've done many workshops in my group work. I do the same exercise. I'm not going to take the time to do it, but if I simply ask you right now, float back to an early childhood memory where you came to believe a lie about yourself, and 90% of you can do it just like that. A memory and a lie. You came to believe it about yourself. It's powerful. The past is powerful. How much low self-esteem, how much low self-worth are you carrying around in your mind and in your body? It's powerful. Jacob. Jacob's an example of someone who didn't prepare his past. Jacob is an example of someone who, because he didn't do anything to repair his past, he spent years, most of his life, it seems like, his productive life, living in pain, living away from home, and just misery. Until he finally one day he faced his fears and came back. But even then, it was a really hard thing for him to do, to meet up with his brother Esau. I mean, he had manipulated Esau out of his birthright. He lied and deceived his own father by putting the hair on his hands. You remember that story? And caused the pain of his dad and his brother and his mother. And what a life he had to live. A rock for a pillow at one point. You know the story. If he had repaired his past immediately, he would have saved himself years of grief. Who in your life do you hold anger towards? Who is it in your life that you have negative feelings about when the word is mentioned, when the person is brought up? What relationship wounds are you still feeling? Breakups, hard breakups. If you neglect this your whole life will eventually fall to pieces. You know, as a professional clinical counselor, because of my education, my studies, I now see things so differently than I did as a teacher, as a pastor. We're a whole lot more complex than we are taught. When people come up to me about anxiety problems, about depression problems, about anger management problems, about addiction problems, about ADHD problems, or you name it, it's generally not about the problem. It's generally, there's a root behind the problem. There's some kind of source. Just like when you go to the dentist. There's something behind the toothache. It's not just the toothache. Otherwise, here's a Tylenol, go home, it's done. It's not done. Tylenol doesn't fix the root of the problem. And in counseling, we could maybe mask it a bit, but unless you get to the root of the problem and heal the problem, you still got the anxiety, the depression, the ADHD, all of that stuff. Believe it or not, yeah, there's been a lot of theories about some of these diseases that have just gone out the window in the last few years. An unhealed and unrepaired past becomes destructive in the present. It affects marriages, it affects our work habits, it affects how we view ourselves, and it affects how we view God. All of this is affected by our past experiences. I could sit here and tell you stories. Thank goodness I can't remember most of them because I think my unconscious brain likes to block them out and keep me safe. But even I have to go to counseling once in a while to get myself fixed because I hear sordid stories, huge XXX movies played out in my counseling chambers, the sickest, most hurtful stuff in your life. I hear things that have brought people to alcoholism and drug addiction. I'm going to just take a very simple one. Something that's quite benign but profound, nevertheless, just to give you an idea how this works. There was a woman, a businesswoman, who owned a business, and she had a few employees, and the employees over the years were getting continually frustrated with her, and they would quit and find another place to work. And what happened was they would come to her with a great idea, they thought, to build the business, to make it grow. And she would listen to it, and she would not implement it. And they get frustrated with her. Pretty soon she started to get the idea that, there's something wrong here. Like, why am I having a problem here? Why am I losing employees? What's my problem? So she went to this professional counselor, and she reached back into her past, and a memory came up like this. I was about 7 years old, and my dad bought me a brand new bike, and he had me on the bike, and he was holding the seat of the bike, and he was guiding me around the yard, pushing me around the yard, and I was learning to balance myself, learning to ride the bike, and then he gave me a shove, and I was on my own, riding my brand new bike, and I hit a rock, and I went over the handlebars, and hurt myself, face down into the ground. And every time somebody brings up a new idea, she backs off with fear, feeling it's just going to fall right on its face. She got that past memory healed. Now she could grow her business. Now she could face new things and implement new things without that fear, that paralyzing fear. No, can't do it. It's not going to work. It'll fall flat on its face. Just a simple example of how this works. Let's go to the story of Joseph. Joseph. Yeah, one of the heroes of Hebrews 11. Joseph with a dozen brothers, older brothers. And I've heard this story so many times, and I've heard it whitewashed, and I've heard it painted over lily white, but seriously, for all my life, I've listened to this story and I go, some things don't add up. So here's what I see it now. Here's how I see the story. Jacob, the one we just talked about, who was deeply hurt, right? Well, he was really hurt when his uncle deceived him and on the wedding night gave him the wrong woman. Hey guys, wouldn't you be downright angry to find out you married the wrong one? Well, you can't even imagine. I have a hard time imagining this stuff. But wouldn't you be deeply hurt when you didn't get the love of your life, and then you got to work another 7 or whatever years to get the one you wanted? Wouldn't there be some bitterness? And I really believe that he was an emotionally absent father to 12 sons of the first wife that he didn't even love, but was forced into the marriage. And then along comes Joseph, the son of the woman he loved, and he favored him. He was a spoiled brat. Why do I think that? Because I have heard story after story of parents who do this to their kids. Favor one over the other. And the hurt and the pain that the kid that is on the other end of the stick feels growing up. They don't get the same amount of they don't get the same gifts. They get minimal gifts. The favorite one gets all the stuff. Painful. And I believe these 12 brothers lived without an emotionally present father all their lives who really didn't bond well with them. And there's a lot of emotionally absent fathers in this world, and I hear the pain of that. One week I heard 3 men tell their stories of how their dads didn't play with them, didn't hug them, didn't say, I love you. And all they got was, it's not good enough. You made a mistake and reamed him out, criticized him, never said you do a good job. Every time they goofed up on the hockey rink, it was a lecture. And I'm proud of you as a hockey player. Stuff like this. And they're like 40 years old and they're still suffering the pain from that experience. Bitter and addicted because they can't get past it, they can't get through it, they can't get over it. One week I listened to these 3 stories. The next weekend I was up at Sun Peaks at a music concert. And Friday evening, Johnny Cash, he wasn't there, but the guy that pretends to be, let's call it tribute band. Johnny Cash was singing, and I'm sitting there in the front with my wife and my family and stuff. And there's 3 men in the mosh pit, the place there where they dance. 3 men dancing with their sons. And I'm weeping. I'm bawling my eyes out. And I look at my wife and I said, why am I crying? And then it hit me because I heard 3 stories of 3 men that week that never had that. And it was triggering me. I got to go to some therapy because this stuff's really affecting me. And so I've gone to some therapy. I do that occasionally. Because I have to deal with this stuff because their experiences call it secondary trauma. I've worked with radio broadcasters who have secondary trauma. When a radio broadcaster, a news reporter has to give that news and they have to interview these people, they get secondary trauma. And this kind of counseling can save their lives. Ambulance, first responders, they're traumatized. They need help. This stuff affects them. Deeply affects them. It affects their families. They get PTSD symptoms and they go home to their families and they can't connect with their families. Firemen, policemen, ambulance. There's a whole lot of stuff going on in the society. People are getting depressed. They're getting broken down. They don't know what to do with it. So I see this story of Joseph, the spoiled guy. He got favored. And 12 brothers that got neglected. They were downright angry. You got to know they were hurt. You don't just plan to murder your brother out of nowhere. How many people do you know murdered their brother, wanted to murder their brother? Not very many, right? There's got to be some deep reasons there. And there was some deep reasons. And I believe that Jacob was the cause of it because of his past that he never dealt with. And it goes on from there. Reuben, he talks him out of killing him and decides, let's just pretend we kill him and sell him as a slave, and then we'll tell Dad that some wild animal, killed him. And how they went through that, I have no idea how they were able to cope with that pain and stuff, what they did to their brother, but they did. And then the story how Joseph, he goes away and he becomes a slave. But he's a hard worker. This Joseph guy's a hard worker. It reminds me of something Dr. Gabor Mate says in his book, When Your Body Says No. He says, how many high school principals, instead of going to the kid that's cutting classes, getting failing grades, and says, you need to see the counselor, how many high school principals should be going to the guy that's senior class president, editor of the yearbook, straight A's, and saying, you got issues, man, go to the counselor. Because this guy could have the same issues as these guys over here. He's just coping with his issues by overachieving, driving himself right out of his mind with stress and overachieving and working to perfection, trying hard to make Dad happy. And I believe that Joseph could have had some of that in him. I'm putting the guy down. I respect Joseph. But he was a human being too. That's the cool thing about the Bible. The Bible just says these are human beings and it doesn't whitewash it and say, well, let's just pick the nice ones like Daniel and Joseph, the goody goodies. No, these guys had issues too. So he works himself up to CEO of his master. And then, of course, he gets, he refuses to be seduced by his master's wife. And so she calls foul and tells a big lie, and he ends up in prison. Down at the bottom again. And what does he do? He works his way up in the prison from the very bottom to head of the prison. This guy's a really achiever. And then he goes beyond that. He gets some opportunities to interpret some dreams through the help of God, I believe. And he ends up second man in the country. Pharaoh Joseph. Oh my goodness. He had power like you couldn't believe. And guess what? His brothers show up one day. You know the story. And they have no clue, conscious clue. There's no conscious clue that this is their brother Joseph. No conscious clue. But there's something unconscious going on in their bodies because they're feeling something. They're feeling something. And Joseph immediately, he knows them. And he starts playing mind games with them. You know? And then every once in a while, this is bizarre, every once in a while, he has to excuse himself, go in a private room and bawl his eyes out and try to get composed again. Come back in and keep on playing the mind games, and then go out and bawl his eyes out. This guy has been traumatized by these brothers. It's not easy. He is not healed from this stuff. And they're feeling it too. There's something about it they don't recognize who he is, but there's something about it. You don't need a psychologist or a counselor to point this stuff out. Anybody that's experienced some kind of pain in their life know the experience. You sense something in your body, but there's something astray. And this is what they said. Surely we're being punished because of our brother. I mean, they had no clue this was about their brother, but something in their brains were being triggered by this person. Their minds most likely felt this was their brother on an unconscious level. And they became so distressed. You know, we saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us for his life, but we would not listen. This is why this distress has come upon us. They're actually feeling this whole distress in their bodies, and they don't know why. And sure enough, it's their brother Joseph. And all the guilt and the remorse and the violence of the past has been haunting them right up to this present moment. Right up to this moment. I have met in my counseling sessions victims of racism. Tragic victims of racism. And I've had people say, I can't get it out of me. I hate white men. I hate white people. Tell me your story. Ugh, you know, pain, the way they've been treated. I get so much fallout from the residential schools. Unbelievable fallout from those residential schools. Where First Nations were, their hair was shaved off, their language, they weren't allowed to speak their language, their names were changed, they couldn't practice any of their traditions. They were taken miles away from their homes as little children, the government hoping to somehow reprogram to be white people and break this whole thing, and it backfired on them. I've had people that, if you even say the word police, or if they see a policeman, they have a literal breakdown, a panic attack, because of what how they've been treated by policemen. And oftentimes very unfairly. And I've taken my clients to the hospital on occasion, to the emergency ward, and assume, I hate to even say this, but it's true, as soon as they find out they're from Bridgeway Addictions Treatment Center and they're addicts, they get treated completely different. Because I know how they treat me when I go there, and they get treated completely different. It's sad what these people have gone through. I've had sat with victims of rape, gang rape, and almost every time I get around to women, I get at least one woman that says, I can't have Don as a counselor. He's male. I can't work with a male counselor. And we basically walk them through it. This is probably what you need. You need a male counselor. Because you're not going to get through this until you deal with your past. And every time, it's helped. They bond with me. In fact, we have a stronger bond rather than the other 10 women in the group. It just seems like it's healing. But it's so powerful that they can't even You can't talk to a male. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. I can tell you people, both personal and in my counseling, where you get into the realm of religion, church, and they literally have a panic attack about church. They cannot go into a church because they've been hurt by a church. The pain is so real. They can't even go to a funeral without suffering the pain of that memory. I remember one lady who I was working with in a group setting, and I was one of the assistants at the time of this group counseling. And one day she came up to me and she said, she was trembling. She says, "Don, I got to talk to you. I got to talk to you." She was trembling like this. She said, "When I heard that you were a pastor, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to." But she says, "In fact, I was so afraid you were going to say that J word. I almost left." You get it? Even the word Jesus. That's sad, isn't it? How she was treated somewhere in her past. She gave me a hug and she said, "Forgive me for feeling that way. You presented a different view." But she wasn't ready to become a Christian by a long shot. But that's the first step in healing. Healing the past. Repairing the past starts with forgiveness, by the way. And forgiveness is a word that it's not a simple thing. The only time forgiveness is a simple thing is when you're walking around and you accidentally step on someone's toe and you go, "Oh, I'm sorry." And "Oh, that's okay." And it's done. That's the only time forgiveness is simple. Forgiveness is not simple. Very deep hurt can cause forgiveness to become quite a process over time of healing. But it has to start there. Now, interesting, the title says repairing your past. And so I'm here to tell you the bad news. You can't change your past. But here's the problem where people get stuck. They get stuck in that point where it's not like they consciously want to change it, but they really want to change it. They want it to be different. And they so want it to be different, it's causing them present pain. Because they want it to be different, but it's not going to change. You can't change the past. You can heal from the past, and you can begin to look at the past differently. You can't change the past. And forgiveness is giving up all hope of a better past. It has to start there. Repairing your past is not easy. Now, I believe that we need to seek out professional counseling. Some of us really need to seek out professional counseling in order to repair the past. And I'm not advertising. I cannot take any more clients. I've got a waiting list, and I work full time anyway out of place. But I'm saying there are lots of professional counselors out there that are available. And we have come a long ways in terms of helping people. I use a process, I've been trained in a process called EMDR, and I know you're not going to remember that, but write it down if you need to. EMDR is all you need to know. I movement desensitization reprocessing. Don't worry about that name. Just remember those letters. I would suggest if you've had a traumatic, painful experience in your past, find someone who's trained in this. They have to have a master's degree in clinical counseling to do this, and it is amazing. It's healed me. It's healed me of things. I'll be real honest with you. I had a hard time walking into this building until I had EMDR. And when I had EMDR, in one session, I could walk in this building and all my pain is gone. I wanted it to be gone, but I couldn't get rid of it. I've forgiven, but I still have the pain. It's just the mind, it's the brain, it's there, and it gets rid of it. I've done EMDR, hundreds and hundreds of EMDR sessions, and some of the most bizarre ones are things like, I'll just put it right out here, a guy who's, the last time he saw his son was on the pavement, his head squished down to an inch thick. You think that's painful? He couldn't even talk about his son's death. It would just like break down into pieces. An EMDR session, he could talk about it, share it, tell it with people. It happened, no more pain. It's an amazing process. I believe a God-given process. It's similar to REM sleep, and most of us don't get a decent REM sleep. It's a long story. I don't want to go into it. But I would seek some counseling out. If you've got deep, deep pain that gets triggered, I would seek out this kind of counseling. It's more research than any other kind of counseling. It's accepted as healing for PTSD by the World Health Organization, the American Psychological Organization. It's well-founded, well-researched therapy for trauma. So I bring that to you because I believe that the church is not able to heal everything. Just like, yes, some people come forward and they're prayed upon and they're healed of their disease, but a lot of people aren't. They have to go to doctors and get help. Physicians, naturopaths, counselors. Because there are natural ways to heal these things. So I want to just end by sharing something. It's a text. This kind of summarizes how deep this pain was. Because even though Joseph and his brothers kind of, made up, you know what I'm saying? Kind of reconciled. Years later, after burying his father, Joseph goes back to Egypt. All his brothers who had come to him to bury his father returned with him. After the funeral, Joseph's brothers, here it goes, talked among themselves, what if Joseph is carrying a grudge and decides to pay us back for all the wrong we did him? You get it? Years later, they're still feeling the pain and they still can't trust Joseph. Dad's dead now. He might get even with us now. This is the pain they had. So they sent Joseph a message. Before his death, your father gave this command. Tell Joseph, forgive your brother's sin, all that wrongdoing. They did treat you very badly. Will you do it? Will you forgive the sins of the servants of your father's God? When Joseph received their message, he wept. Even Joseph is struggling, but he wept that his brothers still hadn't healed, still were trusting him. And then his brothers went in person to him and threw themselves on the ground before him and said, we'll be your slaves. This is how pain they had. They were still feeling this pain. But here's Joseph. I believe he was very resilient. He dealt with his past because here's his reply. Don't be afraid. Do I act for God? Don't you see you plan evil against me, that God used those same plans for my good? As you see all around you right now, life for many people. Easy now, you have nothing to fear. I'll take care of you and your children, he reassured them, speaking with them heart to heart. And Joseph continued to live in Egypt with his father's family. Joseph lived 110 years. Joseph had finally healed from this deep hurt. He healed by looking at the past through a different lens. He saw something good came out of this sordid past, this terrible thing that happened to him. How something good came out of it. I don't believe for a minute that God had it all planned out, that God causes people to do this or causes people. No, but whatever the devil throws in our path, whatever pain comes your way, it's not God that's causing it. But God can rescue you from it. He can repair it in a sense that he can go to plan B. And plan B can be something beautiful. One of my favorite expressions when I talk to my clients who have been through hell, have experienced all kinds of, say the word, shit. And I say, shit makes good fertilizer. Use it. Instead of letting it break you down and tear you apart, use your sordid past. Use it as fertilizer to grow a brand new life, free of addiction. That's how we have to do. This is what Joseph did. He took his sordid past, the stuff, the painful stuff, and he said, he looked at it differently. He said, God didn't do this, but God used it in a wonderful way to save all these people. So don't worry, I forgive you. That's all I need. When we can start to find even some gratitude for those bad things, not that we're grateful that they happened, but something good came out of it, That's healing. That's healing. I pray that for all of us.